is that there's more evidence against Jussie Smollett that has not been released, including, quote, physical evidence, video evidence, and testimony. Apparently, none of this evidence supports Smollett's version of what happened. This includes the check for $3,500 that Jussie Smollett wrote to one of the two brothers who are now claiming they were paid that amount by Smollett to stage the attack. Apparently written in the memo line of the check was, quote, 5-week nutrition and workout program. We will be keeping you updated each Thursday on this story, so be sure to check back next week.
The developments in this news story are keeping me on the edge of my seat, and I really don't know what to believe at this point. It really all comes down to the evidence. In other news, the new Candyman movie, produced by Jordan Peele, has found its Candyman in Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. Abdul-Mateen is known for his recent role as Black Manta in Aquaman. The new Candyman is described as a spiritual sequel to the 1992 classic, and takes place in the now gentrified section of Chicago where the original took place. Candyman is set to release on June 12, 2020.
And most significantly, Netflix is reportedly looking to release Martin Scorsese's The Irishman in theaters with a wide release, and I know Dylan is excited about this movie.
Very excited, I'll tell you that much.
Following the disappointment at the Oscars leaving their foreign film Roma without a Best Picture win, Netflix is looking to make headlines and awards with Scorsese's new flick. The only way for Netflix to do a wide release would be to play the game like Amazon, where they release a movie in theaters and are forced to wait to stream it. That would be a game changer for Netflix and streaming services in general. That was the movie news for February 28th. Let's talk about last weekend's box office. Dylan?
I heard this weekend is getting back to normal. Is that right, Ryan?
Well, yes, Dylan, this time around, the box office was pretty healthy. How to Train Your Dragon 3 topped the February 22nd to 24th weekend with $55 million in its U.S. debut. It should be noted that this exceeded industry expectations as well as our own, and made it the franchise's best opening. Taking into account how to Train Your Dragon 3's foreign box office numbers came in, it is 2019's number one grossing movie at $277 million.
That's right, and it is followed by Alita Battle Angel in both worldwide gross for $265 million, and this past weekend's domestic totals. It managed to pull in $12 million, a 56% drop from its debut week.
Number 3 is Lego Movie 2 with $9.6 million.
Number 4 is Fighting With My Family, which opened nationwide and pulled in roughly $8 million. This is on par for industry predictions, but these predictions weren't necessarily optimistic. Perhaps these numbers indicate that the WWE, despite all its success, is not yet meant for the mainstream silver screen.
Perhaps so. Coming in at number 5 is Isn't It Romantic with $7 million, exactly half of its gross the previous week.
Number 6 is What Men Want, $5 million.
Happy Death Day to You comes in 7th, $4.8 million.
Cold Pursuit clocks in at 8th with $3.2 million.
At number 9 is The Upside with $3.1 million, and this Kevin Hart/Bryan Cranston effort is on the effort of cracking $100 million domestic gross.
And rounding out the list is the newly released Run the Race, coming in at $2.6 million and just inching out Green Book. Run the Race, since you've likely never heard of it, is a faith-based sports drama produced by Tim Tebow and his brother Robbie.
All right, now that we've heard the numbers, what do they mean?
Well, as Hollywood has learned in recent years, overseas markets are as important as ever. How to Train Your Dragon 3 entered its 7th weekend of international release, which is why it sits atop the worldwide 2019 charts. It still has strides to go as it opens in China this weekend. As you know, Ryan, China is the single most important overseas market for film, and it is rapidly gunning for America's spot as the most important market, period.
You're very right about that, and in fact, Alita is indebted to the Chinese movie market for its salvation. It debuted in China and grossed a strong $62.2 million, which actually exceeds Alita's 11-day domestic total of $60 million. Overall, Alita brought in $92 million overseas this past weekend. It seems it will be another case of Terminator Genesis, where foreign markets allow the film to earn back its budget and actually generate a profit.
Lego Movie 2 is struggling in both markets, however. Like in the States, it garnered only $10 million in international markets. Its worldwide total stands at $136.5 million. Lego 2 has surpassed Lego Ninjago, but it doesn't seem like it will keep pace with the first Lego movie, nor Lego Batman. It appears that this niche market, Lego movies, has been expanded already.
It is starting to look that way. But as international markets have breathed life into Alita, we may be witnessing the beginning of another niche franchise. I was unable to see the movie, but you were. Is it worth turning into a franchise? What do you think?
I think it definitely will be a franchise, and absolutely should be. I'm going to start with what was good, which, surprisingly, is a lot. The acting was well done, for the script. They did their best, which is better than blockbusters usually get. I liked it a lot more than I thought I would, which goes to show you shouldn't judge a movie by its trailer. For a James Cameron-produced movie, it had a lot of high-quality practical effects, despite the fact that the main character is computer-generated.
Were the graphics well done?
For the most part. The characters were well-designed, but the motorball sequences, which is kind of like their sports in this fictional world, they like
Tron-type stuff?
Yeah, like Tron-type stuff, but like they're running on skates, kind of, and they're trying to catch a ball.
Oh.
Yeah. The motorball sequences were a little too quick and not animated as well, but it was ultimately very entertaining, even the motorball scenes. Very engaging and really kept me on the edge of my seat.
All right, what was bad about it then?
The writing was a bit cheap and not well paced. The beginning was too quick and they over-explained the backstory of the planet, and I feel like I really did not have to critically think at all. They explained it and then they explained it and then they explained it. They had a title card that told you what happened, and then they kept bringing it back up so that it really hammered it down into the audience's brain so that you really did not have to think at all. Also, I don't think this was necessarily a bad thing, but it seemed way too violent for a PG-13 movie. Literally, 2 people get cut in half.
Were they animated people, or were they...
One of them was an animated person, the other was not.
Oh.
And they actually get cut in half 2 different ways, one horizontally, one vertically.
At least they got diversity in it.
There you go. Overall, I give it a 3 out of 4 stars, and I recommend to watch it if you want to watch a cool sci-fi action flip film. Yeah. You can check out my full review on DMJ Film Reviews via Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and online.
And now, let me ask you, because I had a friend that saw it, and he said that it was essentially, it just read like some prequel that was setting up a whole franchise. Do you think it was like that? Like everything you saw was just set up?
Definitely the first half was set up, at least. It was basically telling the story that's happened so far and introducing you to all the different characters and letting you know everything that's happening. And that's really where it over-explained. But about halfway through, it sort of picked up and it got a lot better. And it was more about just the characters rather than the story they're running through. And it really, like, took me through the motions. It's just much better the second half on. And it's definitely... It's got to be a franchise. It leaves you with this cliffhanger ending, and
no spoilers. Is
I
it
won't,
like
no spoilers.
Alita's? Unless that's a spoiler, like it's going to be that, or is it going to be just other characters?
It's going to be Alita. It's Alita's series, and it's definitely going to continue. It has to. Not with that cliffhanger ending. It left me wanting more.
All right. Well, I'll be sure to check it out. The Season 3 finale and other news of True Detective aired on Sunday. The seasonal anthology series follows detectives solving heinous crimes with twisted and often insane motives. The first season, starring Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, was a critical success that was almost eclipsed by the failure of the second season. 4 years later, and showrunner Nick Pizzolatto, am I saying that right?
Pizzolatto.
Pizzolatto?
I think it's Pizzolatto. Something like that.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Good name, either way. Has returned with the latest installment starring Mahershala Ali. What did you think about it, Dylan?
Pizzolatto has returned to what made the first season a success, which was the characters. Ali stars as Wayne Hayes, a Vietnam veteran turned police detective, and his partner Roland West, played by Stephen Dorff. The two are pushed into a world of lies and deception when the children of Tom Purcell, played by Scott McNairy, disappear. The story is told through 3 interlocking time periods, one in 1980, then when the crime was committed, one in 1990, when the case resurfaces due to new evidence, and finally again in 2015, when Ali's character, Hayes, is being interviewed by a true crime series following the Purcell case.
That sounds like a whole lot. Pizzolatto is known for not being afraid to write complicated stories that may have been confusing, a strength that proved to also be a weakness in Season 2. Season 1's story about the hunt for a serial killer leaves a lot of intrigue with the audience as the case takes multiple dark turns, ultimately leaving audiences with the climactic final scenes.
Very true. Season 1 of True Detective is something that Pizzolatto and other crime shows have been trying to beat, but it simply can't not be done. Although Season 3 does get close. But that may be because of the strong similarities between the two, which critics have been quick to point out. But, I mean... Both tell the story of a crime in a small rural town with alternating time periods and interviews about the case as a way to explain events and leave mystery about the story, resonating with the viewer. And Pizzolatto seems to dance on a very fine line in these interview scenes on whether he is over-explaining the events, which is effective but cheap dialogue, or if he is under-explaining, which doesn't tell us much, but leaves us with that mystery, making it actually good writing.
I remember the praise that the first season garnered, particularly with Harrelson and McConaughey's performances, that they were extraordinary, some of the best of their careers. Harrelson played the more brash and macho detective with an alcohol problem, while McConaughey was some out-of-body, clever, but crazy detective. I haven't seen season 3, but what did you think of the performances?
Mahershala is great because he always is. Somehow he has found a way to be both the brash macho detective and the out-of-body thinker at once. That has to do with the writing for him and his own performance itself. It really changes between seasons, but it seems so effortless. I think the real champion in this season, however, is Steven Dorff. Mm-hmm. He wasn't really in a lot of promotions, and this was really chopped up to be Mahershala's season of the show.
Really, I thought it was a lot of people. Thing.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize when they just look at the trailers and they look at the promotions that Mahershala has a partner throughout the entire season.
I know, because I thought it was like, oh, they had partners the first time, partners second, and I thought this was just one dude.
But Steven Dorff really stands out, and he knows, and Dorff knows that, so he really plays his character as supporting. His performance elevates Ali's to a new level, yet he has moments where he stands on his own and really shows the true emotions of the character. His goal is to really just be a good detective. He isn't trying to prove anything but get the job done. And he gets wrapped into Hayes' or Ali's character's obsession with the case, and that really takes a toll on him. And you can see that in a lot of very powerful acting scenes with a lot of emotions running through him, and it's just a very good job done.
Do you see, like, Emmy nominations in the future?
I definitely see Emmy nominations, possibly Golden Globe nominations, and there should be some wins in there, if you ask me. It was just powerful, and it was just the definition of a supporting role. He's there to make Ali's performance even better, but he still stands out on his own. But he doesn't, like, take the light away or anything.
It's nice. Well, it's good to see that True Detective is back on track, and we look forward to its future. It's time to talk about our predictions for this upcoming weekend's box office.
And there's not much to predict. There's really only 2 notable wide releases, Greta and A Medea Family Funeral.
That's right, and Family Funeral marks the 8th-ish or 9th-ish Medea film. Who can really keep count anymore? And hopefully this will be when the character is retired. It is projected at $23 million, which is on par for recent Medea movies.
I know that's what Tyler Perry hopes, is to retire the character respectfully, as it was what brought him into the limelight, into the celebrity limelight. It was his real career move. And I think he really wants to build himself more as a dramatic director and actor now.
That's what I saw with him in Vice.
Yes.
And so hopefully that's
going
to be a turn for his career.
I hope so. He's a very good director and a very good writer and actor. And as for Greta, a stalker thriller written by Neil Jordan and Ray Wright, there are no industry predictions. We will have to wait and see how much it pulls in, but personally, I think it'll make around $3 million at the most. Jordan is, of course, known for The Crying Game, that came out in the early 1990s, and garnered several Academy nominations, including for, it was just wonderful performances all around in the whole movie. And I love that movie a lot, and I own it, but not all the people have seen it. But overall, I don't think Greta, his new film, will be as artistically significant as The Crying Game, and I do suggest all of our listeners to find a way to watch The Crying Game.
Instead of Greta.
It's masterful and just well done, but I don't think Greta will hold up to that as well.
Did you see the trailers for it? Is that why? Or did you just...
I've been reading a lot of reviews based on it, and it doesn't hold up to his earlier works.
It's unfortunate.
Very unfortunate.
I'll throw it in at about $4 million, and I'll be curious to see what it actually does pull in. But an interesting limited release this weekend is Gaspar Noé's Climax. Gaspar Noé is the director who made Love, a film which debuted at the 2015 Cannes Film Festival, and it was notorious for its 3D erotic content. So only one can imagine what this new film will entail.
I don't think that's going to rack in a big box office, and I'm not looking forward to seeing it. I don't.
No date night on that one, Dylan?
No, I don't think I'm going to make that one. Overall, it seems like we'll have to wait for Captain Marvel's March 8th release for 2019's box office to really kick it into gear. We're going to take a short break now, but when we come back, we'll be talking about the Oscars and giving our thoughts on rock band biopics. You're listening to Box Office Breakdown on WNSC University of Central Florida, and this is Goodbye Yellow Brick Road by Elton John.
Should have stayed on the phone, should have listened to my own was too young to be singing the blues. So goodbye, yellow brick road, where the dogs of society howl. You can't plant me in your penthouse. I'm going back to my plow, back to the howling old island woods, hunting a haunted black toad. Oh, I found the side of my future lies beyond the yellow brick road. What do you think you'll do then? I bet that she's down the plane. It'll take you a couple of hot urine tonics to set you on your feet again. Maybe you'll get a replacement. There's plenty like me to be found. Mongrels who ain't got a penny, sniffing for tips like you. On the ground. So goodbye, yellow brick road, where the dogs of society howl. You can't plant me in your penthouse. I'm going back to my plow, back to the howling old island woods, hunting the haunted black toad. Oh, I found that inside my future lies beyond the yellow brick road.
Welcome back to Box Office Breakdown on WNSC, University of Central Florida, Orlando. The time is 4:20. Let's get to business.
The Oscars were last Sunday, and it was an absolute doozy. Winners including Rami Malek, Olivia Colman, Alfonso Cuarón, and Green Book.
Speaking of Alfonso Cuarón, his win for Best Director makes it the fifth time in the last 6 years that a Mexican director has won the award, starting in 2014 with Cuarón himself winning for Gravity, followed by Alejandro Iñárritu with back-to-back wins for Birdman and The Revenant, skipping 2017 when Damien Chazelle won for La La Land, and then Guillermo del Toro won for Shape of Water, and Cuarón won this year again for, of course, Roma. The three amigos, as they are affectionately known, continued their directorial domination of the Oscars.
And this year's ceremony was an amazing step forward in terms for diversity. There were African-American winners in Best Adapted Screenplay, Costume Design, both supporting acting categories, and Production Design. People of Hispanic descent won for Best Director, Best Cinematography, and an Asian filmmaker, a woman it should be noted, won for Best Animated Short, Bao.
It was also a night of firsts. Ruth E. Carter and Hannah Beachler became the first black women to win for costume design and production design, respectively. While not a first, Mahershala Ali actually became the second black actor to win 2 Academy Awards for acting, after Denzel Washington, of course. Truly, we are a long way from the Oscars so white days, and we are seeing the diversity that cinema has long had finally being reflected in its most coveted award ceremony.
Now let's take a moment to recognize some of Sunday's winners. We're going to start off with what we started off last time, which was makeup and hairstyling. The big winner was, of course, Vice, which is what we predicted. I think Ryan wants to talk about that speech.
Well, the speech was the most notable thing about them winning, and it proves the point that you need to make what you have count. If you go up there for your Oscar acceptance speech,
so what happened when
make
they
it
went
good.
up there, Ryan?
Well, they went up there with papers, and then they very uncoordinatedly began reading off a list of thank yous. I don't even know how it was that hard, but they couldn't do it, or at least not, properly.
We read off papers every Thursday.
That's true. And it's not that hard, trust me.
It's really not. After makeup and hairstyling, costume design won for Black Panther, even though I and several others had predicted the favorite to win, and I do think it was an upset.
I agree. The favorite probably should have won, but I mean, Black Panther isn't that. It's not like it was a crazy.
It wasn't like a crazy upset, but what intrigued me most about the favorite was the costume department had such a low budget that their costumes had to be repurposed every time they did a new scene. So after they would finish a scene, they would rip apart the clothes and re-sew them together to make new outfits and new costumes. And I think that was innovative, and I think it really pulled off. And you can kind of see that really handmade quality within the fabrics of these outfits that they're wearing that really emanates the time period it was trying to show. Although I will concede that Black Panther was a good idea to win. It definitely deserved it. I just think the favorite deserved it more.
Yeah, I mean, that just goes to prove that not all Academy voters understand stuff like that would otherwise, change how they would vote. Because in that case, the favorite seems the clear winner. Or should be the clear winner. For visual effects, First Man was the winner, and we had predicted Avengers Infinity War, but
it was a definite upset, but in the best possible way. I had predicted that Avengers Infinity War was going to win. I mean, everything was pointing towards it. Everything statistically was pointing towards it. All the critics and all of the experts were saying that Avengers Infinity War was going to win, and I really wanted First Man to win, but I didn't think it would, and then it ended up winning, and I was absolutely thrilled. It actually gave First Man an Academy Award, let alone a nomination, which it absolutely deserved. It was a wonderful film.
Plus, Black Panther gave the MCU its other Oscars, so I don't think Infinity War's that bummed out about it.
There you go.
But for the next one, we have Best Animated Short, which went to Bao. There's nothing really to say. We all thought it. It deserved it.
Absolutely. And it is a step forward for Asian filmmakers everywhere, which is very exciting. And I'm very looking forward to any future work that Pixar has to offer. I love their shorts.
I know. All right. For Best Foreign Language Film, again, no contest here. It was Roma.
I feel like I was expecting an upset there, just a little bit. Because the Oscars is notorious for doing that, is giving something that we definitely expect to win and upsetting. And I'm very glad that there wasn't an upset. I didn't think anything else stood a contest to Roma. And
that would have made the other upset a lot worse.
Yeah, we'll get to that later.
Yes. All right, now for where we're starting to get more upset about the upsets. We have Best Sound Editing and Best Sound Mixing, both of which were won by Bohemian Rhapsody. Dylan, how do you feel?
I'm okay with it winning Best Sound Mixing. We had predicted that A Star Is Born would win, and we said that a possible upset was Bohemian Rhapsody, so we were expecting it. And I understand why it won, because both movies are about live performances from rock bands and other kinds of bands, and it's really about mixing the sounds of those bands and the audience and any kind of dialogue and singing voices together. And so rock movies and war movies are usually what win this award because of all the different sounds that have to come together. So I wasn't surprised when Bohemian Rhapsody won for this award. I was surprised when it won sound editing over First Man because it is lip syncing. Tell me more about that, Ryan.
Yeah, it was, I mean, even in theaters, without imagining that this was going to be nominated, let alone win for Best Sound Editing, I could tell in parts where the lip syncing was just off. And it was like, how could it have won for sound editing and editing as well?
Yeah, that has to.
If that's, I mean, musically stars have done better lip syncing.
That's going to factor into film editing. We'll come up with that in a second, but that'll definitely factor in. Our next category is Best Score, which went to Black Panther, and that was our predicted upset, even though our prediction was If Beale Street Could Talk. I've listened to both scores. They're both good scores. Ludwig Göransson's score for Black Panther was riveting, and it was action-packed, and I loved it. It really got me excited. But at the end of the day, I felt like If Beale Street Could Talk was more artistically significant and musically significant. Just an absolutely beautiful soundtrack that resonated throughout the story. What did you think, Ryan?
I can agree with that. I think this is probably the most well-deserved Black Panther award that it got.
Probably.
This night. That's like the one I'm most okay with.
Although I think costume design was pretty well deserved.
I mean, yeah, it was good, but as you said, for those reasons. But I feel like Black Panther did have a lot going for it for the score category.
Yeah. Our next category was production design, which also, interestingly enough, went to Black Panther over The Favorite. I had predicted The Favorite. Experts had predicted The Favorite. Ryan thought The Favorite was going to win. And Black Panther swooped in out of nowhere yet again and took it away, just like costume design. This time, I really don't think it deserved it. I predicted that Black Panther was going to be an upset, and it was, and I don't think it deserved it in this time, because like most of the MCU movies, there's a lot of CGI going on, especially computer generations, enhancing the background. But what I know about production design is the effort that it goes into the production designer to come up with a specific look for how a movie should feel, and finding exactly the right locations and the props and painting and changing the locations to look exactly like it. And CGI is just kind of like a cheat way.
Yeah,
I just think it's a cheat way to cover up real
Honestly,
talent from real production
I
designers.
feel like, again, The Favorite had a good production design. I thought Roma had an incredible production design.
that was incredible.
Because they had to, I mean, going off of Alfonso Cuarón's memory of how his neighborhoods looked back in that time period, and then they had to recreate that. I mean, whole streets, and created for real effects. Like, no CGI was used in those.
Especially the
But you
scene,
can tell.
especially the scene outside the movie theater where she's holding her lover's jacket and she's trying to find him, and you have all these street sellers going on around. That's kind of important for sound mixing too, because you can really distinctly hear it. You have all these street vendors selling things, and you have them making noise with like the toys they're trying to sell.
But the point is, that was all like created.
That was created
like, that was
for
insane.
the film, especially like the scene where the fighters are all standing next to each other and they're practicing the kung fu or karate, and just the coordination that went into organizing them and finding the perfect patch of land to organize that all, because it was a lot of people just in one place, and the production designer is the one who has to find that location with the location manager and the location scouts, and they have to find that and they have to change it so that it looks perfect for the director.
All right. And then next we have Best Film Editing, which again was won by Bohemian Rhapsody.
I think that was a cheat against Vice. Do you feel differently? You had something else, didn't you?
I
that you
didn't
wanted?
think that. I agreed with, based on what Spencer was saying about Black Klansman, because he was very adamant about that in editing, and I saw Vice and Bohemian Rhapsody. I guess I would probably pick Vice over Bohemian Rhapsody, but I didn't really like the editing in Vice that much either. So
I can understand it. I like the editing Vice just because of the way it made the viewer feel and the emphasis that it had on making you feel a certain way about Dick Cheney and just the horrible things he did, and like cutting it in with all these different elements that had nothing to do with the scene itself, but just had to do with making you feel a certain way. I really enjoyed that, and like it was quick cuts, so it's kind of like subliminal messaging where it like it's imprinted on your brain, but you really can't think about it, but it's definitely there, and it's just like just long enough that you saw it, but not enough to where you remember it. And I like that. Bohemian Rhapsody was something else, and that comes back to the lip syncing. I didn't see any lip syncing issues, but I know you did. That's because I wasn't really looking at his lips.
In the, like, for when they had Rami Malek, his best actor, you know how they show the clips in front of it?
Yeah.
Literally in that
scene
there
where he's
was
like
lip-syncing.
playing the song in the house that they were working in.
Which is interesting, because he obviously wasn't singing it, neither was Freddie Mercury. That was
Someone
Mark
else.
Mattel, who's some, like, I don't know, he is an impersonator for Queen. But anyway, like, so he was just lip-syncing to him, and it didn't even look, like, towards the end, it just didn't even look accurate.
Yeah, and that also comes down to film editing, because you're supposed to be the man that syncs it up, and it's hard to do that when the actor sings just like it, but not enough to where it's perfect. So it's hard to get that film editing in, but any expert would cut away. If it really looks that bad, they would cut away from it. And I know it's really a directorial choice about cutting away from that, and I think Bryan Singer or Dexter Fletcher, whoever was directing that scene, I hope not Bryan Singer, whoever was directing that scene, was wanting it to be focused on Freddie. But if they really wanted to look better, they could have done like a Woody Allen kind of cutaway, looking at something completely different for no reason, just for artistic value, you know, just to make it look better and play better. What's next, Ryan?
All right, we have Best Cinematography, and that went to Alfonso Cuarón for Roma.
I'm happy about that, but not as much as I wish I could be, because, I mean, Cold War by Lucas Zal, was some of the best cinematography I've seen in the last couple of years since Emmanuel Lubezki won 3 Oscars in a row for his cinematography. I mean, Lucas Zal was blowing my mind when I was watching Cold War. It was the one thing that stood out most to me, and that had to do with, like I said last week, changing your perspective from a tight, equal, communist state kind of feeling to a warm, fluid movement within the capitalist states of like France. And that's just really important to me. It makes you feel a certain way when you watch it, like the film editing in Vice. It's all about how it makes you feel, and like the positioning of the camera and the positioning of the actors was just so well done, and the lighting was also well done, especially for it was another black and white film like Roma, and lighting is very hard to do with black and white, particularly because you can't work with any kind of colors. It's black and white and with grayscales in the middle, so you have to get that lighting just right, otherwise it's too dark or it's too light. So it's really hard to do, especially in Poland with all the snow that's just pure white. But he used that to his advantage, filming in isolated cold weather where you can only see maybe a speck of gray, to like really emphasize that isolation in the communist state, and that sort of, and then later again, when they're free from the communist state, they're in a very small portion of the frame, and that's sort of isolation, but it's mostly about freedom. And their freedom away from communism. And I just loved it all.
I feel like, because I haven't seen Cold War, but I did see Roma, and I thought the cinematography in that was beautiful. Just
it was beautiful.
It was intimate, it was subtle, it like lingered on certain scenes, which really embedded you inside that story.
Absolutely.
So I feel like that was well-deserved.
Because it really was subtle and really just took its time. Because I think Alfonso Cuarón really wanted to just emphasize the story more than anything intricate or special that he can do with the camera, because I know he can do it. He's been with Emmanuel Lubezki for years, and he's been learning with him, and he knows the camera just as well. And I feel like he could have done these intricate shots, but he purposefully chose not to, just to really balance that story well, because it's a small story about a very small worker in a very large country and large city. And it's really about her story and keeping it very personal. So it definitely deserved the win. I just think Cold War deserved it just a bit more.
All right. And next we have Best Animated Feature, which went to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
I was holding my breath on that one. I really was, because it's one of the few times Pixar got overlooked.
I would have been livid.
I would have been
if it had not won.
It's just the Academy does love Pixar.
I mean, yes, for good reason, but this is the only time I think where we would have been pissed that a Pixar movie won.
But yeah, I mean, absolutely. It was well done, it was well deserved, but I was afraid Pixar would take it because the Academy loves them. They've given them Best Animated Feature multiple times. They've been nominated for Best Writing in general, and they've been nominated for even Best Picture, let alone Best Animated Feature. And so I think Pixar is a little bit upset, but I'm sure they understand why they lost. They've all seen Spider-Man. We've all seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and it was well done. It took 4 years to complete that animation. Just sheer hand to pencil, working on the animation on the computers. It was just really well done, and they spent the time to work on every single second, every single frame.
And it was beautiful. It does what animated movies should have been doing for all this time.
Yeah, the style, it really emphasized that comic book feeling. It gave you that feeling of like the scratchiness of the comic book, like the paper, and it really emphasized that, like, you know, classic style where like you punch a guy and it goes kapow with like lights up and goes kapow, and they kind of gave that feeling every time a character would get hit or get knocked down. And there were scenes that were just beautiful, like in the forest scene when they were retreating from the base, like the trees really just brought out a lot of color. And especially that ending scene, I got tingles when he was going through.
You got your spider sense.
Yeah, I got my spider sense. It was tingling when he was going through that, just the webs of the universe just surrounding you for a long period of time. And they really like stretched that on to emphasize how hard they worked on it. And it really was beautiful. Plus the writing itself was phenomenal.
It was a hilarious movie.
It was very
incredible.
funny.
And that was the first time, I believe, that a black director has won for an animated feature.
Yes, absolutely. And Phil Lord and Christopher Miller also won, along with the 3 directors, and they helped write and produce it. and I've been fans of them for a while. They also the ones who helmed the Lego Movie and the Lego Movie 2, or helped helm it. I know they directed the first Lego Movie, and then they co-wrote the second Lego Movie. So they're getting big in this animated game. They're kind of like going up against Pixar here. And it was kind of unfortunate to hear that Disney knocked them out of Han Solo, the Solo story.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were originally going to direct it, and they got knocked out for Ron Howard. And that's kind of why I felt like it was an incomplete film. It felt half done one way, half done another. Mm-hmm. And it really just showed. But that's another story, a Solo story.
Next we have Best Song, which was won by Shallow from A Star Is Born. What'd you think of that?
I thought it was a really good song, and we all knew it was going to win. I thought the performance...
Oh, yeah?
It was good.
Steamy?
It was, yeah, it was a little steamy. It just happened. You remember that? Like, they just went right into it. There was no really introduction.
Cool. That was
cool. I liked that because it reminded me of the movie, and they had been like piping it up really big a lot before the show, and so like they come right onto the stage and they start singing, but it got a little awkward at the end, especially when people were like yelling for them to kiss. There was a guy who yelled in the back. He yelled kiss. Yeah, they were yelling kiss in the stadium.
I mean, I was saying that at home. I was saying, oh my God, they're going to.
Yeah, I remember that. You were saying like, oh, they're going to kiss. They're going to kiss. And it was awkward because Bradley Cooper's girlfriend was right there in the front row.
Also Christian Bale.
Also Christian Bale was in the front row.
Was probably jealous too. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe Christian Bale was as well.
I don't know. I don't think Bradley Cooper has any intention of leaving his girlfriend. He loves her very much, but I think Lady Gaga might have been reaching.
Half of the population want that to happen, though. Yeah. That's a little much.
All right, real quick, next.
We have Best Adapted Screenplay for Black Klansman.
Black Klansman, deservedly. Spike Lee. Spike Lee! And some other folks that helped him out. And I thought it was very well adapted. I read a synopsis of the book before I even heard that the movie was being made. And just the comparison between that book and like the reality of the movie, it was very close and it was very well done. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad Spike won his first Oscar tonight, his first competitive Oscar tonight, because he won an honorary one a few years back, and I'm glad he finally won.
Mm-hmm. All right, and finally for this segment, we have Best Original Screenplay. It went to Green Book instead of The Favorite.
Which makes me furious.
Just your favorite keeps losing out.
I know, it makes me furious. It really does. Just because Green Book, I mean, the individual dialogue itself was not bad. I watched it and I thought the dialogue was well done. What did you think?
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh, you haven't seen it? I thought you saw all of them.
No.
I apologize. Well, the dialogue...
I haven't seen The Favorite.
The dialogue was all right, and the acting was pretty well done. I thought Mahershala Ali really carried that film. But
I did watch, actually, because I was going to go see a different movie, and then I walked in on that because I was there early, and so I watched like 20 minutes of Green Book. Yeah, just because I had nothing to do, so I just stood there and watched.
What'd you think?
I mean, I thought it was... I was trying to figure out for the longest time what it actually was. And then with Viggo Mortensen, I finally found out. I was like, oh.
I did the same thing when I accidentally walked in on Crash, yeah. I remember that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, maybe that's the curse. Don't walk into such movies.
The wrong movie wins. Yeah. But it just wasn't as good as The Favorite. The Favorite was purely original, and it just told a true story.
I know,
and it was
like,
well done.
Green Book, which was based on a true story, but then it was a disputed true story.
But The Favorite is a historical true story, and not a lot of it is disputed. A lot of it is very historically accurate, and just the way they took something that was such a serious historical event and turned it into something that was actually like legitimately funny at points, and then just like quickly turned it into something dramatic was something that was just absolutely beautiful.
Really wanted to see that. I tried to see it so bad.
See it. I'll make sure you see it. It's really good. We're going to take a short break now, but when we come back, we're going to round out the Oscar winners and give our classic movie of the week. You're listening to Box Office Breakdown on WNSC, University of Central Florida, Orlando. This is Don't Stop Me Now.
I feel alive, and the world I'm turning inside out. Yeah. I'm floating around in ecstasy, so don't stop me now. Don't stop me, 'cause I'm having having a good time, having a good time. I'm a shooting star leaping through the sky like a tiger, defying the laws of gravity. I'm a racing car passing by like Lady Godiva. I'm gonna go, go, go. There's no stopping me. I'm burning through the sky, yeah. 200 degrees, that's why they call me Mr. Fahrenheit. I'm traveling at the speed of light. I wanna make a supersonic man out of you. Don't stop me now. I'm having such a good time. I'm having a ball. Don't stop me now. If you wanna have a good time, just give me a call. Don't stop me now. 'Cause I'm having a good time. Don't stop me now. Yes, I'm having a good time. I don't wanna stop at all. Yeah. I'm a rocket ship on my way to Mars on a collision course. I am a satellite. I'm out of control. I'm a sex machine ready to reload. Like an atom bomb about to explode. I'm burning through the sky, yeah. 200 degrees, that's why they call me Mr. Fahrenheit. I'm traveling at the speed of light. I wanna make a supersonic woman of you. Don't stop me, don't stop me, don't stop me. Hey, hey, hey! Don't stop me, don't stop me. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Don't stop me, don't stop me. Have a good time, good time. Don't stop me, don't stop me. I'm burning through the sky, yeah. 200 degrees, that's why they call me Mr. Fahrenheit. I'm traveling at the speed of light. I wanna make a supersonic man out of you. Don't stop me now. I'm having such a good time. I'm having a ball. Don't stop me now. If you wanna have a good time, just give me a call. Don't stop me now. I'm having a good time. Don't stop me. Yes, I'm having a good time. I don't wanna stop at all.
Welcome back to Box Office Breakdown. The time is 4:45, and we are continuing our reflection on this past week's Oscars.
We're going to jump right back into where we left off, starting with Best Supporting Actor, Mahershala Ali for Green Book.
All right, and that's pretty much uncontested. We kind
Uncontested.
of predicted, we knew, deserved, beautiful.
Yeah, I saw all the other performances, and I felt like they were just kind of present and not really giving it their all, but Mahershala Ali really brought it, and I was really proud of him, and I love Mahershala Ali, and it's shocking that this is only the second time an African-American actor has won 2 acting competitive Oscars, but I am glad for his win. We're going to move right into Best Supporting Actress, Regina King for If Beale Street Could Talk. I don't think either of us saw that movie, but
No, we did not, but apparently she was...
it's uncontested. Nobody
Good.
stood a chance. In the predictions, in anything, nobody stood a chance.
All right, for Best Actor, we have a little more...
Controversy.
Bad opinions, I don't know, disagreement over it.
Rami Malek for Bohemian Rhapsody, which was a little rough to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it wasn't a bad performance. It really was not a bad performance in my opinion, but it just was not as good as some of the other people nominated, like Christian Bale for Vice and Bradley Cooper for A Star Is Born. I just feel like he didn't deserve it as much. But
yeah, notably, he's the first Arab actor to win
Arab
such
American,
an important,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's pretty
Important,
cool. There's a
but-
milestone.
Yeah. We're going to go right into one of the biggest upsets of the night, which was Olivia Colman winning for The Favorite over The Wife. On the show, I predicted that Glenn Close was going to win.
Mm-hmm.
But in my own personal predictions at home, where I bet Spencer some money on it, I predicted
You
Olivia
changed
Colman.
it to Coleman?
Yeah, I did.
Oh.
And that's what pushed me over the edge. I beat him by 1.
Nice.
Yeah. And I'm very happy she won over Glenn Close. I feel like the reason Glenn Close would have won was because of her collective body of work and not just for The Wife, which is kind of what Leo won for The Revenant.
I know, but
his
I mean,
performance
that man,
was still good in that one.
but he deserved it.
He did.
5
Glenn
times
Close,
over so many long.
Glenn Close, this is her 7th nomination. Everyone thought she was going to win just because of her collective body of work, and she had a lot of performances that she should have won for, but Olivia Colman really brought it in.
All right, best director it was Alfonso Cuarón for Roma.
Very exciting. I don't even think we need to talk about it. That was expected. It was a very welcome surprise for him.
All right, and now we have best picture, and Dylan's about to go off because instead of Roma, Green Book won.
There were a lot of movies nominated for best picture. There were 7, and up to 10 possible nominees.
8, I think.
No, there were 7.
7, 8.
7. But Green Book and Bohemian Rhapsody were the two that, and Black Panther, I guess, were the two that really didn't deserve that win.
Yeah.
And Green Book took it. I mean,
We
Green
said
Book,
it on the
feels
show.
like it feels like a movie that it's supposed to be about race relations, but it's from the perspective of the white man. It's directed by a white man. It's written by several white men, and Mahershala Ali is one of the only black actors in it. And there's not a lot of African American producers. I know Octavia Spencer produced it, but we don't know how extensive her involvement was in the production. But I mean, it just feels like it should not have won at all. And Spike Lee agrees with me. There are reports,
very outspoken
strong
about
reports
it.
that he stood up and left as soon as it won, tried to leave. He put a reverse Kanye and went for the back of the stadium. And they told him to sit back down. So he sat back down and sat through it. Jordan Peele was visibly upset, sitting behind Spike Lee.
Many people were upset.
He produced Black Klansman, and after the awards, I know Spike Lee said that the ref made a bad call, and I agree with him.
We said it on the show that it was. We thought Green Book very well could take it because the Oscars love to give the award to race relations movies that are from the white perspective.
Feel good, yeah, those kind of feel good movies.
Yeah, where racism is dissolved.
Yeah.
In one film. All right. Dylan, this year's Oscars were not without some disappointments.
Yeah.
I know you had those strong emotions about, but what do you think about the ceremony itself?
Oh, man, you bet I do. But I thought the ceremony seemed a bit empty without a host. There was no flow to the show and nothing special about it at all. Queen was a little bit of a letdown. Queen and Adam Lambert, I thought it was a little disappointing.
I love them. I just think that's based on the audience because a bunch of stuffy people that are trying to be artistic and they don't want to have fun. Anyway, honestly, I thought that the ceremony being hostess wasn't that bad. It actually helped cut down the telecast runtime and allowed for more emphasis to be placed on the films themselves rather than the quips at certain stars that the hosts seemed to be around for. Overall, I hope this was a learning experience for the Academy and that next year the needless controversies will be avoided. You?
Absolutely. It is about time the Academy quit playing around with their rules so much, and I hope they do have a host for next time. It just plays better when there is one, personally, I think so. All right, it's about time we play Scoreboard. I'm going to play a recognizable score from a movie, and Ryan has to guess the name of the movie. Are you ready, Ryan?
We'll try to guess and probably fail, but yes, I'm ready.
All right, I'm very happy to hear you say that. We're going to play the first one right now.
Harry Potter.
You guessing Harry Potter? You're right.
All right, yeah.
I'm trying to start you off easy. It's going to get harder as it goes along. I'm promising you. Okay. Here comes our second score. What do you think it is? Jaws?
Yeah.
All right. See, it's. I told you it wasn't going to be that hard.
It was
You
a
were
bit
worried about it.
soft.
Yeah, you were worried it's going to be hard, but it's not going to be hard. This next one might get you though.
Oh. It almost sounded like Silent Night from Beethoven.
What do you think it is, Ryan?
Can we have a hint?
It's a superhero movie.
What?
It's a superhero movie. I think you can guess it based on that.
No, that's gonna be a no.
No?
A
You give up?
superhero movie? Are you kidding?
It's a superhero movie, yeah.
Marvel, DC.
DC.
I don't know. Batman. One of the Batman.
It's Batman, yeah. It's Tim Burton's Batman movie with Danny Elfman composing the score, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought you'd get that one, but
No, I
that's
know
okay.
the Dark
All right.
Knight a lot better. That one's
I hope
incredible.
you get this one. We'll see.
Godfather.
Good guess. It is Godfather. Yes.
That's what it is.
Yeah. All right, and our last one, I don't think you're going to get this one.
All right.
It's a little bit of a difficult
I love that.
one, but we're going to see.
I like it. What genre?
It is a drama, and it is
It's
a
a drama?
Best Picture winner.
A recent 2000s? Plus?
No, 90s.
Ah, shoot, Forrest Gump.
No.
Heck.
One more guess. I'll give you one more guess.
What else won in the 90s? I don't know. I
I got
can't.
nothing. It's Titanic. It's the beginning scene where they're in port, and it's called Southampton. And it's when they're in port, and it's just that intro scene when they're all running on the boat.
How dare you play Titanic?
Oh, yeah.
And not even the good part of it. All right.
I had to trick you there.
Yeah.
If I played the easy part, you would have gotten it. All right.
Okay. Well, now that that's done, if there's one thing that Hollywood learned from this year's Oscars, it's that biopics of classic rock bands have been validated commercially and now critically.
Of course, we were referring to Bohemian Rhapsody, the biggest winner of the night.
Yes, sir. And in an age where Hollywood will try to capitalize on emerging trends at the risk of suffocating all interest in those trends, it seems that rock biopics are inevitable.
Absolutely. Whether this trend will be a lasting success like the superhero genre, which has also just been validated by the MCU's hat trick at the Oscars, or will go the way of, say, other cinematic universe attempts or the toy-to-screen niche seen in the Lego movies, we cannot yet say.
Right, but we do expect a wave of Bohemian Rhapsody-like movies, since the Queen biopic amassed over $700 million worldwide and took home 4 Oscars and 2 Golden Globes, one of which was Best Picture. Studios have proof that the dramatization of popular rock stars' lives can be a resounding success. In 2019, we have 2 examples of similar films, don't we, Dylan?
That's right. An Elton John biopic, Rocket Man, which I'm excited for, starring Taron Egerton, is set to release May 31st. Even sooner, a Motley Crue biopic titled The Dirt is set for a March 22nd release. Both films will depict their respective icons' dramatic rise to stardom and the obstacles they overcame and tumbles they took along the way.
And reportedly, those 2 films are the first of a handful already in the works. A Leonard Skinner film, Street Survivor, has apparently been completed but is in legal contention because, of course, it focuses on the tragic 1977 plane crash. Crazy Rich Asians' John M. Chu is in the early stages of developing a Journey biopic, but not the kind that you'd expect. It would actually follow the 2007 replacement lead singer Arno Pineda and his story. And finally, a movie that would feature the Beatles' music, but not necessarily the story of those iconic members, is expected in the fall, starring Ed Sheeran. You know more about that?
I'm very excited for that. It's directed by Danny Boyle, who directed Slumdog Millionaire, and Ed Sheeran is not the main character. I just want to get that out there. He plays himself, and he's just a side character that appears as kind of a cameo.
Why? Why is he cameoing
playing
in
himself.
everything?
If you watch the trailer, it'll make more sense. He's kind of like trying to produce this guy's music. It follows a man who is a very unsuccessful rock star, and he crashes his bike, and he suffers a concussion. Yep, as one does. And he wakes up the next morning to find that nobody can remember the Beatles songs except for him. And so he goes to write the Beatles songs, and he becomes wildly successful and wildly popular. I love the idea for this film. I love the director, and it just sounds like a whole lot of fun. The movie is called Yesterday by Danny Boyle. I'm very excited.
Mm-hmm.
And we look forward to seeing how these films pan out and which other classic rock figures get their own biopic treatment.
If you had to choose a rock band that would have its own biopic, what would you choose?
I would choose AC/DC, no doubt. Just their story, their rise to popularity. They were like very popular, and then their lead singer passed away tragically, and they thought they were going to be out for the count until they found Brian Johnson, who I believe was an auto mechanic at the time, and he came in and he took over, and he did a really good job singing for them. Their album Back in Black, which was his first album on it, it was a respectful way to kind of say goodbye to their last singer, and it was also a revival of the band in their next generation. And I think that they should focus on that specific time period where it's that transitioning period where they're all hurt and distraught, and then they find redemption with Brian Johnson.
All right. What song would you want to have in there of all the others?
Back in Black.
It's a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me think. Highway to Hell, Shoot to Thrill.
Ooh.
Yeah. I'm... For Those About to Rock, We Salute You. That's one of their later songs, though, so I don't know if it would feature in my timeline for the movie. But I look forward to maybe seeing that. What about you?
For the biopic, I would choose Guns N' Roses. They, just like Queen and AC/DC, had a historic rise to stardom, and then there was a lot of drama involved. You know, obviously Axl Rose and Slash, two big personalities, and they actually had a breakup, so I feel like a lot of drama could be had in there.
All right.
And so now we have our classic movie of the week. Each week at Box Office Breakdown, we induct one movie into our classic movie list. Each movie has to be aesthetically important as a movie and as a work of art. What is our inductee, Dylan?
Today's classic movie of the week is Casablanca. Humphrey Bogart stars as Rick Blaine, a cynical nightclub owner that protects an old flame and her husband from Nazis in Morocco.
Casablanca won 3 Academy Awards in 1944 for Best Writing, Director, and Picture. Roger Ebert once said of the film, "It plays like a favorite musical album. The more I know it, the more I like it."
Bogart, best known for portraying reluctant and tragic heroes like in The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, owns the role of Blaine. Most importantly, audiences of all ages can identify with the choices Rick and Ilsa make. They had to sacrifice their love to fight for what's right, which most people can agree with.
That's right. It stands the test of time as there's something for everyone. Romance, political intrigue, character study, wit, times versus flat-out hilarious, suspense, mystery, action, and drama, all set to historical background. This film executed each of these complex facets beautifully, and much of why can be contributed to the film's writing. Of course, Bogart and Ingrid Bergman's portrayals imbued life into the screenplay's words, but if there were ever a need for a singular work as proof to the screenplay's status as art, we would need to look no further than Casablanca. Casablanca was truly the epitome and height of old-school, classic Hollywood.
Couldn't agree with you more, Ryan. We urge our listeners to watch Casablanca. If you have a suggestion for the classic movie of the week list, please send it into boxofficebreakdown@gmail.com. That's boxofficebreakdown@gmail.com.
And our recommendations for this weekend is Alita Battle Angel and the Lego Movie Part 2. You've heard us talk about it before. Go out and see them.
It is time for the show to close. We'd like to thank our listeners for tuning in. Be sure to come back next Thursday at 4. We're going to be talking about our expectations for Captain Marvel and our predictions for the Avengers Endgame.
Box Office Breakdown is brought to you by WNSC, University of Central Florida, Orlando. And if you'd like to give your thoughts about the show, you can email us at boxofficebreakdown@gmail.com.
Our main title theme is Tongue in Beak by Sid Dale, and our outro music is Cool Daddy Charm by Heinz Keisler.
And again, thank you for listening. Box Office Breakdown will be back next Thursday at 4. Be sure to tune in.